Hello and welcome to Ticket Manager's All Access interview series, engaging leaders from across the sports marketing spectrum to identify and explore critical issues in the business of sports, entertainment, sponsorship, hospitality, ticketing, activation, and even more. I'm your host, Jim Andrews. Joining me on this episode is Tom Valdiserri, Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Kemper Lesnik, a leading public relations, sports marketing, and event management agency based in Chicago. Tom, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Jim, thank you so much, and good to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to see you as well. So why don't we just start off by having you tell us a little bit more about Kemper Lesnik, the business there. Can you just give us an overview of what the company's involved in, how you operate, all that good stuff?
So you mentioned that Kemper Sports is a sports event marketing and sponsorship and consulting and PR agency. We're based in Chicago, created in 1979 by Steve Lesnik, our chairman. And we're known for really providing value and measurable results for our clients and partners. We're actually, Jim, part of a bigger organization called Kemper Sports Management. That group is, like us, in the sports event and entertainment and hospitality space. They manage 140 golf properties and youth sports complexes around the country. We work together with Kemper Sports to integrate our services and provide things such as PR and sponsorship sales and consulting, as well as manage event management to all of our facilities, our events, and our clients.
With some of the events that you're involved in, let's just talk a little bit about some of those marquee events that are part of the event management side of the business, if you would.
The Maui Jim Maui Invitational is our premier college basketball event. It basically is the crown jewel of ESPN's Feast Week, leading around Thanksgiving time period. You know, our event takes place the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of right before Thanksgiving Day. And it's interesting because, Jim, it's a 3-day event, but we don't look at it that way. We actually look at it as a 12-month marketing and promotion opportunity for our sponsors and brands. And let me give you an example of that. So if you look at the calendar of the year, starting in January and February, we take our iconic surfboards, which are designed by students from the schools that participate in our tournament. We have a national competition across the campuses. And the students who design them, we use those boards, we have them produced, and each school gets their own board, and then we pick the best of the best, and that person gets to design the tournament surfboard. But we take those surfboards to the schools during January and February, primarily during televised basketball games, right, that are packed crowds, big matchups, and it's a great thing for us in the schools because it gets people fired up about the Maui Invitational coming the following November. For instance, we see our ticket applications and our travel packages sales start skyrocketing during that time period. As you can imagine, if you're in Lafayette, Indiana, or Storrs, Connecticut, or somewhere like that, and you go, oh, Maui, I'm going to be there. I'm going to go buy my travel package now. So that's one event. And then as we look at the season, as it moves along, there's the regular season, there's the conference tournaments, then there's Selection Sunday, and then there's the tournament itself, and then eventually the champion. And in all those points, there's moments for us to either talk about the teams that were just in Maui or the teams that are coming in the next season, which in this case would be the start of the 2023-2024 season.
Right.
And this year for us was awesome because for the better part of the year, 6 of our 8 schools were ranked in the top 15 in the country in the AP poll. And during a certain period of time, 5 of them were in the top 10. So that was pretty awesome for us. And we used that from a social media standpoint and developing content around it. And those schools, Jim, included Kansas, Gonzaga, Tennessee, Marquette, UCLA, and Purdue. And then there's also Syracuse, which is exciting to have them because they've got a new coach. Mm-hmm. And then Chaminade University, a D2 school in Honolulu that is our host. Right. And then again, the next step when the season's over is the Final Four. So in the host city every year, we will announce our field for the ensuing season. So in this case, this past week in Houston, we announced the 24 field for the 2024-2025 season. And we engaged Andy Katz, the basketball guru, college basketball guru,
Right.
to do our announcement for us. And the great thing is with that, Jim, is we held off on the announcement until the Tuesday after the championship game because one of the schools in our field is UConn. And they went ahead and won it for us. And so that made that announcement that much greater for us. And, within we complement Andy's announcement and reveal. This year he used coconuts and pineapples to pull the names out of basically draw them out of the hat, so to speak, and to get to the 8 schools. And then we complement that effort with a media blitz to national media as well as media and social channels throughout the schools that are participating in those markets. And I'll tell you, this year was awesome. Within 24 hours, we had 177 articles, 42 broadcast hits, and about 380 million impressions. And so when you look at these things, and as well as we take advantage of the NBA playoffs, former athletes that played in Maui, they're now in the playoffs. We do the same thing with the NBA draft. And then in the summer, in August, we do the reveal of the bracket. So this August, we will reveal the first round matchups for the 2023 Maui Jim Maui Invitational. And Andy's going to help us with that as well. Then we follow that with the surfboards going back to campus, this time during football games. So you can imagine a packed house at Tennessee with 100,000 fans, and the basketball team and the cheerleaders and the surfboard make their appearance with big promotion on the Jumbotron and things of that nature. And then we lead the schools that don't have basketball or football. We'll work with them on their first public scrimmage or their Midnight Madness or whatever that may be. The thing about this, when I said 12 months, every one of these moments, Jim, is open to a presenting partner, a title partner. So the Maui Jim Maui Invitational bracket reveal presented by, or the field announcement presented by. So we look at these opportunities as opportunities for our partners.
Tom, I think that's really interesting because, what I'm seeing when I talk to brands is, they all seem to have this strategy now, or going in the direction of fewer, bigger, right? They don't want to be involved maybe with 20 different events throughout the year, which, that lends itself then to say, well, I should do, a stick and ball sport because I get an entire season. And at first you might think, well, that puts a single event like a tournament like Maui at a disadvantage. But, you're really kind of counteracting that argument by creating a 12-month platform that a company like Maui Jim or some of your other partners there can continue to activate, and it's not all about, as you said, 3 days in November.
Yeah, and I think that's, you said many brands, correct? That's right. There are a lot of brands who may not be in the space yet that we are actively talking to all the time. And, we can be a low-level entry, right, cost-wise. Or we can be seen as a complement to their sponsorship across college basketball and ESPN or the other networks. It's really, we can work with sponsors who are in it already and want a little oomph at the beginning of the season. And if they're a corporate partner in NCAA, then they've got the big event at the end of the season as well. So it kind of bookends things that they're doing. And if they have a bigger promotion or partnership with the NCAA, they can kick it off with us.
Sure.
So that's one way to look at it too. And then there's those challenger brands maybe that don't have the budgets to jump into the major events or a season-long heavy sponsorship or marketing program with college basketball that can kick it with us and use us through 12 months out of the year through the calendar I just described to you.
You were also going to mention your other kind of big event.
The other event that we own is the Asheville Championship. It's also a college basketball tournament, a bracketed tournament. It's 4 teams versus 8, which is Maui. And that event kicks off the first weekend of the basketball season. So before Feast Week.
Right.
And basically we crown the first champion of the season. So it's the first MTE, as they're called, multi-team events. And this year we've got a great field with Maryland, Clemson, Davidson, and UAB. UAB was in the title game of the NIT. Davidson is about an hour away from Asheville, so we're working that fan base to come out in droves. Clemson's right over the border in South Carolina, and we catch them on an off day because our event is Friday and Sunday. Football's on Saturday. It's an hour and a half drive, so they can make it, right? So in Maryland, it's a great market for Asheville and their Visitors Bureau, that's the D.C. area. So that made sense for them as well. And so we're really excited about this field this year. Yeah.
And then of course you've got the McDonald All-American.
Yeah, that's from years and years ago. I've been involved in that with other agencies, and it's got to be one of the most fun events to be a part of. And our role there is we do all the operations, we handle the player travels, the registration, we sell sponsorships, we basically co-produce the on-court game with ESPN. But you get to see these young kids that you can see a couple of them go, okay, that's going to be a star. I remember sitting in Chicago when we had it here, and I had never seen this young lady before, but Brianna Stewart comes walking out of the locker room, out of the court, and I go, okay, that's a basketball player. You could just tell by the way she carried herself and the way she handled the ball, just shoot around, that she's got something special. And it was great this year. We had a couple of those. Ronnie James was in the tournament this year. LeBron's son. LeBron showed up during the game. It was awesome. The crowd went crazy. We had the number one player, a female player, Juju Watkins. And then DJ Wagner, who is a third generation McDonald's All-American. That's the first time that's happened. His grandfather was in one of the first events and then went on to win a national championship with Louisville in 1981. So it was an exciting event this year, and the games were probably some of the best I've seen. We had a young lady from the E Squad. She's attending Notre Dame next year, so I was very happy to see that. I'm an alum.
Right.
She set the record for the most points in that game, as well as the most assists, and she's a 5'6" guard, Hannah Hidalgo. So watch out for that name.
I will definitely keep that in mind. So it's definitely an interesting business model that you have there at Kemper Lesnik. You've got some traditional agency like roles where you're representing different clients, whether it's PR, sports marketing, but then obviously you are owning and or producing and managing events. So I guess what are the biggest challenges these days facing a business like yours, Tom?
Like any business, especially agencies, maybe, that we're always looking for the next. Whether it's on the activation side, experiential, or events themselves. What is the next? And the next means, how do we grow our business and our event portfolio and our client base? And we do that, in a very thoughtful way, and that whatever we're doing has to benefit the partner or the client as well. And we have to know their needs, know their goals, know their objectives before they as they become a client of ours. Whether that's helping them activate a sponsorship, whether that's consulting with them to become a sponsor of something that they may have a desire to be. And, they might, and we have to continue to, use the services that we're really good at and complement those with services that, that we do on the outside, things that we look to do that through acquisition or creating it in-house, or strategic alliances is what we are pretty much using now. And those are things like, content development and the meta, that's kind of the next wave in content development and how to use that for brands and events, digital, and also, refined measurement. How do we measure success? And as I said, we do offer those services through strategic alliances, but we believe that, sustained growth of our business and sustained relationships with our clients and partners will come through having those in-house. And so we are actively looking at those things as well. And we took on, I don't know if you know, but we took on some investors in this last year. So we're part of a bigger ecosystem now that includes a property called Thrill One Sports, which is Nitro Circus and Street Skate on one side. And then the other side is a really interesting and dynamic company called 3-Step Sports. 3-Step Sports is based out of Boston. They're probably the biggest owner, operator, and manager of youth sports in this country. They own club teams, they own events, and they own facilities and multiplexes across 9 sports, boys and girls from ages 8 to 18. So we see a lot of synergy in what we do and what they do. And that's what we're doing right now is we're looking at how can we marry these groups together to create better business for both of us and the partners that we each have. As I mentioned, we're part of a bigger group in Kemper side. Right. So our Kemper Sports Golf Management Group, because we know how to manage facilities, we've created a Kemper Sports Venues Division that is now managing a number of those youth sports facilities and multiplexes that 3 Steps own. So if there are brands out there that are looking to dive into the youth space, they reach 6 million athletes annually and their parents and families. We think we can help you make that happen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's, and we certainly we concentrate a lot on the marquee events and pro sports and think about that with sponsorship. But the opportunities that exist on a grassroots level, like you said, to reach just millions of participants, whether it's youth sports, whether it's running, amateur golf, all of those kinds of things. Just we can't forget about those, because those are some.
Yeah, and it's a huge industry, and it's been unwieldy. How do I get involved as a brand, because it's fractured, or there's regional plays or local plays or so many organizations, and Three Step is really kind of the forefront of how you aggregate all that and bring partners into the fold, whether it's on a local, regional, or even national level. And the other benefit for us in the event space is because we work with them, we see the sports that are coming based on participation in youth and what's down the road. Some of it you can see even at the collegiate level now. For instance, women's volleyball is really on the rise. There's no denying women's softball either. When you see the numbers at the World Series and the ratings, the early season event or two that they have are packed houses, and so that's really exciting for us. And again, we can connect those tissues between the youth and college, right? And because the way they're connected with all these sports, and not only administrators in those sports facilities, but collegiate coaches who follow those, and they have relationships with those kind of coaches. So we're working with them to develop those relationships on our end as well, so that as we look to create new events, we have those kind of relationships at the administrative level and at the coaches level on the collegiate space.
And you kind of touched on this a couple of times today, but just, you and I are talking, not too long after the Final Four, both the men's and the women's tournaments. And of course, this year, one of the big stories was, of course, the women's championship and the LSU Iowa matchup. And, there's the ratings and the numbers.
The ratings were just awesome.
Yeah. I mean, off the charts, right? Is that just this general interest in women's sports? Are you seeing that in the conversations you're having with brands and partners?
Yeah, I do. And personally, I'm really interested in women's sports. My two sisters were college athletes at Notre Dame. They were both fencers. Oh. I was too. I wasn't as good as they were, but I was on the team as well. My oldest sister, Kathy, was one of the first female monogram winners at Notre Dame. Wow. And my younger sister was awesome in her own right as well, came a few years later. But I just saw what sports did for them and their confidence and their competitiveness and their organization, and they become very successful later. And I think, we've seen that for years. It can do that for men, but there's no doubt that what it has done for women, not only in sports, but in business after that. And, we're just getting through the final school year of the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And what a great year to have this women's Final Four just blow through the doors on numbers and things like that. So it's really good to see, and I'm happy to see that. And we are having conversations with administrators and women's college coaches across a number of sports about, building an event or two. But when we build an event, Jim, we don't throw the ball on the field or on the pitch or on the court and bring teams and say, have at it. Right. We do a few things that I think that are different than others. And that is we engage the local community. We work with charities in those communities. If you look at Maui, again, we kind of use part of that model in this way, in that our big charity is the Maui Food Bank. So we do auctions every year, silent auctions that generate anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 for the Maui Food Bank every year. We work with 6 schools in the market, elementary schools, to create programs for them as well. And we did the same thing in Asheville last year when we had our tournament there. We worked with the Harris tribe, Cherokee. They own the casino and resort there, and a golf course, and they're also the naming rights sponsor of the building we're in. But they also have a high school with kids that don't get to see these kind of things. So we actually created a program that was basically GoPro in sports. And we brought a number of those students out, high school students, out to our event. We did a Q&A with them with the head of the sports commission, our head of PR, myself, and a few others, where they just got to ask questions. We introduced them on the court at halftime. They got to take on some roles during the tournament. And so that was 2 years ago. And last year we expanded that to 8 high schools in the area. And it became a competition among seniors. And this is what I didn't know. I wish it existed when I was in high school, but there was a lot of sports marketing classes in high school now, and particularly in that area. And so we ran a competition among seniors to do a campaign for the Asheville Championship on their own social channels. And we picked 5 winners. They each won $1,000 college scholarship. And we had a partner behind that, a sponsor who supported that. And it was a great program, and we're going to double down on that again this year. So we do a lot of different things. So when I say that we looked at sports, we want to do more than just play the game. We want to make an impact, and we do that with our golf properties in every market we're in. And so our events are no different than that. So that's our goal. And so, yes, we are looking at the women's sports space. There are some brands that are doing it really well. And one that jumps to my mind is Alley Insurance.
Oh, sure.
They're really, really good. They're in NASCAR. They're in MLS, but their CMO, Andrea Brimmer, and her staff all played college sports, softball, track, soccer. They've dove headfirst into women's sports. So now they're in the NWSL, the WNBA. And then right before the college tournament started, they became title of the ACC Women's College Tournament. So we'd love to work with them on some of our events and talk to them about what we're doing. So if you're out there, Allie, we'd love to meet you. Anyway, but yeah, and the thing you can see too, Jim, is that things are heading that way with brands and businesses and sports. When you see, I can't remember the exact number, but I'd say over the last 2 months, there were 5 or 6 consecutive cover stories on Sports Business Journal that focused on women in sports as owners, business owners, as leaders in organizations, as up and comers, as movers and shakers. It was great to see, from coaches to business. Yeah. And that's awesome to see. So when you see Sports Business Journal doing that 6 covers in a row, you know it's here.
Exactly.
And we're ready and primed to be in that position as well.
The other thing that's here that I know has had somewhat of an impact on your business is NIL. So can you talk a little bit about that? I know the company did some kind of pioneering stuff with NIL.
It's a great story, and obviously a hot topic. You combine that with a transfer portal and you've, just a little side note, you've seen what those 2 things together have done in 1 year to the NCAA tournament. Yeah. Look who was in the top 10 most of the year. It wasn't Duke. It wasn't Michigan State. It wasn't North Carolina. It wasn't Kentucky. Right. It was Xavier. It was Houston. It was schools like that who haven't been there and were there. Yeah. And you look at the Final Four from last year to this year, it was awesome to see. But yeah, we did a program, a long-term deal with Topps Trading Cards and a group licensing kind of NIL program with the McDonald's All-Americans. So all the girls and boys who participate in that event have the opportunity to participate in the Topps program. They all get compensated the same by Topps. And we were in the 2nd year of the program this year. So we're excited about that and where that can go in the future. And Topps absolutely loves the program. So that was interesting. On the collegiate level, boy, if you and I could come up with a solution to this, Jim, we could retire today. But we're treading lightly in that space on the collegiate level. We just attended a meeting in Houston at the Final Four that discussed a little bit of the NIL, a lot of scheduling, and then some NIL pieces. And, it's very clear the NCAA's, rules and regulations related to it. A student athlete cannot be compensated directly or indirectly, read that collective, as for participating in or promoting their participation in an event. So we're not going to do that. But we can't, that doesn't mean we can't help them and play in that space, because our events have brands and partners that are involved. Right. And we can certainly help those athletes through the collective or through whoever it is, Open Doors and those kind of folks, with our sponsors. I think the big thing, though, that is going to be an education for some of these student athletes is that these are brands and businesses. They expect results. You don't get compensated for nothing. You and I don't either. So You have to perform just like you do when you get out of college. And hopefully, these kind of experiences in school, not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom, and these opportunities help prepare student athletes for what's to come when only 1% of them make it pro, right?
Right. Right.
So I see it as a positive. I would have loved to have had NIL when I was spending 20 hours a week training in fencing and then working a job 12 hours a week on top of that, plus studies.
Right.
It would have been nice to have it, but so I understand it, and I think if we as a collective group that are in the business in college sports look at it as a way to help educate student athletes and prepare them for the future, that's really the way to do it, right? I think. And I'm excited to see the new president, Charlie Baker, and where he can go with this. Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of student athletes in the university courses that I teach, and it's really just in the last few years, doing a classroom exercise with them was one thing, but now that some of them are getting even just very small social media based deals, that's an education in and of itself that's better than anything I can teach them or anybody else can, to actually see what they have to, what goes into that and what has to be done.
I had the opportunity this past basketball season to attend the DePaul Marquette game. They had some of their student athletes, not basketball players, but other sports at DePaul up in the Blue Demon Club. And they had a bunch of agencies like me, like Kemper, Lesnik there, and talking to them as student athletes about, work jobs in sports, post. And I went right to the NIL question with some of these kids, tennis, track and field. And, a couple of them were just like, there's no way I'm getting anything, here. Nobody cares about a track and field athlete. But I had one kid who was like, I'm doing work for some local restaurants. I'm helping promote them on my social media. And so he's not getting a ton of money, but you know what? It helps him. It helps him not only pay for some expenses out of pocket, but also it's educational for sure. And I think that's the great part about it for the majority of the athletes out there, right?
No, absolutely. And some of those DePaul students were in my class, and I remember them coming back from that event. So yeah, that's it's just a whole new world for them, and I'm very happy for all of those student athletes.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, before I let you go, a question I like to ask people who are on kind of the sales side of the business, working with partners, and that is there something that you would like the brands that you work with, the partners with the various events that you're involved in, is there something you'd like them to kind of better understand about the business of event production and management that might kind of lead to even better partnerships and activations, things like
that? In Maui and in Nashville, actually, one year I took the VP of marketing for Continental Tire in Maui and his sons actually on kind of a behind the scenes tour. So we took him inside the TV truck before the games, and that's something that people just don't see, and his sons they loved it, and he did too, because he had never been inside of that before. And in fact, we just talked the other day, and he said, look, my son's he's graduating pretty soon. He loves the sports business, and it's all because of you and bringing him to Maui and him being involved in a 3-point shoot contest on the court and things like that. And the tour, behind the scenes and at practice or in the media room for post-game press conferences. So we started talking about, avenues that he can pursue to help him do that. And I understand he's landed, I can't remember what university, but with the Learfield group at one of the colleges and university, an internship that he's very excited about. And I'm happy for him, because it's kind of cool to see. When I first met him, he was probably in 8th grade, so now he's out of college and he's getting into the business that you and I are so passionate about. So that's fun to see. And I think the other thing, Jim, on the business side of it is, we approach our partners and our clients as their partner. We're not out there just trying to sell them something. Right. We look at consultative sales, and I know it can be a cliche, but we were fortunate to hire John Knievel, who we worked with you at IEG many years ago. But John spent a number of years in Major League Baseball, in the NHL, and on the agency side, like a Kemper Lesnik before he came to us. And that's what he did. That's what he taught our people here. as well as we hired a new salesman, a young man out of the East Coast, Shane Skelly's his name. He's in Philly. And Shane's a really good, he's not afraid to pick up the phone and call anybody at any time. John is helping him, navigate, how you get somebody, once you get them on the line, how you hook them and talk to them about their business first, not our events, but their business first. And I think, by doing that, it helps you work with that brand to not collaborate, ideate, and then activate behind the partnership. And we feel like we're pretty good in all three of those areas. We have KitchenAid as a client that they're the title sponsor of the Senior PGA Championship. We've been working with them for over a dozen years to activate that property. We work with the Junior NBA, putting on their conference every year and connecting with the key stakeholders in youth sports, whether that's coaches, facilities. You've heard this before earlier in this conversation. Restep is in all that business. So we see some of those folks there at these conferences. We work with Maytag on their triathlon or Ironman up in Benton Harbor, Michigan. And of course, Maui Jim is our title sponsor. We work with them to help them with, promotions and sweepstakes and things of that nature. And, on site, every coach, every player, and everybody who buys one of our travel packages gets a pair of Maui Jim sunglasses when they come to Maui, and they get personally fitted for them. So they have a whole selection they get to pick from. And it's really fun to see people because it is an amazing brand. I don't know if you own a pair, but you can put on any of those sunglasses. As soon as you put these on, you go, oh my gosh. And that's the reaction. It's fun to see people. And it's true. They're really a really great brand. So all that meaning is, we're partners and we want to work with our prospects and our clients and our current partners in that way to help them. And if you look at us that way versus a vendor, which, a lot of us in this business have experienced that in the past, I think it's getting more and more away from that because, the brands are now accountable for the programs and the dollars they spend more so maybe in the past. It's not necessarily the CEO who likes the sport, so they get into it.
Right.
But there's some, metrics there that have to pay off. And I think that's what we can help brands do.
Well, Tom, it's been a great reconnecting and having you share more about what you do and some of those insights. So really want to just thank you for joining us on this episode of the podcast.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. It's always great to talk to a legend in our business. So thank you very much.
I'm not sure about that, but I'll take the compliment. So on behalf of everyone at Ticket Manager, I want to thank all of you for watching and listening and remind you to please join us again for the next episode in the All Access interview series.